A little bit about myself. I'm the youngest of two daughters. I'm 6 years younger than my older sister, so we kind of had that separation in age, but I'm really grateful for her because I watched her, do her thing, and then I was able to follow in her footsteps. And academically, she excelled, and so I had that to look up to. Both my parents were in the military. My father retired from active duty service from the Army in 2004, and my mother is about to retire in December. I'm very proud of her. She put in 32 years and 7 months. She'll always remind me. and Dad did 24 years as well. So military brat through and through. And I think it's funny because I had never lived off post before coming to El Paso. So I got my own space that I could call my room here in El Paso, and I could decorate it the way I want, a way that you can't do in military homes because you have to leave it the same way that you found it. Coming here to El Paso, I started in elementary school, met some great friends that I still talk to today, even though they go their separate ways because they were also military children. I went to Ross Middle School and followed going to Silva Jefferson Health Magnet High School, which I loved going to school on the south side, even though Jefferson tends to have a bad name here in the city when you bring it up and people kind of groan, but I love the school. I loved getting to know the people there, getting to know the culture there, because it's something that I had never seen, right? Because I had lived on a military base for most of my life. And I graduated from Jefferson Silva High School in 2017, and I went directly into El Paso Community College, where I pursued physical therapy. There was a wonderful program that took me from the health magnet school that I was at into community college, where I could pursue my physical therapist assistant license. And so I had been doing that for the past 3 years. And recently, even though I did graduate from El Paso Community College and I was able to pass my board exam to get my license, I have changed my interest into studying journalism, studying more community engaging, community building career paths for myself. And that's mainly because I knew I had a passion for helping people. That's what brought me to the healthcare field. But I didn't feel the same drive and the same passion that I felt in healthcare, unfortunately, as I do directly helping people, directly seeing people, meeting people, greeting people, and getting to know people. And so I believe I found my passion in community engagement and community service. So that is what I am pursuing as of now. I changed my major to journalism, going over to University of Texas at El Paso. Here in El Paso, I've also been very active at my church in the Northeast, Word of Life Ministries, under the leadership of Bishop Albert J. Mays Jr. and his wife, Mother Willie M. Mays. And I love going to church there. I've gone there ever since I was 10. And so a lot of people who are there, they've seen me grow up. They are able to tell me how proud they are of me. And that's a really home feeling that I get here in El Paso that I hadn't gotten at other duty stations, right? Because I'm not there with my blood family per se. But I really have found family in church. I found community there. And I am very active in my ministry. I work with the multimedia team, with the choir, with the children, really anywhere that I'm needed, just because I feel that I've been given the heart to help. And so I try to help as much as possible. I have recently been given the opportunity and the privilege to work with the Black El Paso Voice, with Miss Tucker, who is amazing. And once I found out what her platform was, what her everything that she has going on, I said I have to get onto her team, and so I'm grateful that she welcomed me with open arms. She's actually allowed me to write some stories for the Black El Paso Voice, and starting in September, we discussed creating community forums for the candidates who are running for local elections here in El Paso. So she allowed me to use her platform of the Black Roundtable. Gratefully, of course, I accepted, even though I was hesitant to be pushed into the spotlight, but I knew that there was a need for it in the community here to know who the local candidates are, to know who they're really voting for in November instead of just looking at names on a ballot and going off of that. So and we've had great success with that, and it wouldn't have been able to come to fruition without her mentorship. And of course, I want to thank Mr. Curtis Smith as well for helping me out and making that a success. So that's what I'm recently doing in inserting myself and getting to know the community through her platforms, and I'm very grateful for that. Advice that I would give to my 17-year-old self, and I think I have to kind of preface this with telling you about 17-year-old Dynacee. So, you know, she was about to graduate from high school, had the whole world in front of her, thought that I had actually gotten a really good scholarship to go out of town to, oh man, what's the name of it? It's a university in North Carolina, Wingate University, I believe that's what it's called, and it was a full ride scholarship, and I was very excited for it. And so if I was talking to 17-year-old Dynacee, I would probably start with, hey, you don't need to go there. and one of the main reasons and why I'm so grateful now, looking back on it, that I stayed here in El Paso, is that I wouldn't have gotten into this work if I hadn't stayed here in El Paso, if I hadn't seen the opportunities here and the real need in myself for community engagement. I knew that I love to help people, and I love to be active in whatever group I was in. I was class president in high school. I did student council and, you know, tried to do things to help out my school, but there was also a way to take that from a high school level into the real world, and I wouldn't have realized that if I didn't stay here in El Paso. So 17-year-old Dynacee, you know, you're not going to move out of the house as soon as you thought you would, but that's okay, because even though you're going to go through some of the hardest times in school and figuring out who you are as a student, figuring out who you are as an adult that you're going to grow into, you're going to come out so much better on the other side, and you're going to have so many opportunities fly your way that you're not going to know what to do with them. So just hold on tight and study. Study hard and you'll get through it. So any other woman, if I had to give them advice about how to live their best life, first off, do not go to Instagram. Do not compare yourself. Do not put those hashtag goals on your life, because that is going to stress you out. It's going to lead you in a direction that your life is not meant to go. So if you're absolutely lost and you don't know where to go, I would say try everything. Really, when I was younger, I can't say that I found my passion, because I hadn't. I thought I was going to be doing physical therapy and going the healthcare route, but I tried it and it led me to find what I wanted to do. So I don't consider any time that I spent studying that wasted, because everything is either a blessing or a lesson, right? So I was blessed to have the opportunity to be able to go into that program right out of high school. I was actually the youngest of my class to graduate from that program, but it was also a lesson because I realized I didn't want to do it. And that's sometimes figuring out what you don't want to do absolutely gets you closer to what you do want to do. So try everything. There are no limits, there are no bounds to what makes you happy, what makes you, work, and what makes you excited for life. So I would definitely say try everything. Also, don't get caught up in what other people expect of you, so not everybody's path is the same. Not everybody absolutely goes from high school to college to career, because if it were that easy, then all of these, college graduates with their degrees would have somewhere to work. And unfortunately, of course, not considering Corona, even though Corona has put a damper on people's lives, people aren't getting out there and finding their career, the career that they want to get into. So definitely find your own path. I'm not saying that you're going to be able to live off the land, because everybody needs a shower, needs somewhere to call home. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a plan going into that, but as long as the plan makes sense to you, that's all that matters. Talking about my aha moment, and I want to get into kind of a section of my life that I haven't talked with previously, because I talked about how, I found out that my career that I was studying isn't actually what I wanted to study, so that was one thing. But also with relationships. So I will will definitely say 17-year-old me thought that she was in it for the long haul, right? Like even 19-year-old me, I was in a situation where we broke up and had gotten back together, and so that second time I was like, all right, this is it, you know, we're basically setting wedding date plans. And here I am, 21-year-old me, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I'm not in that anymore. Because look, and it's nothing against the person that I was in a relationship with, and I would like to think that I'm not a terrible person, because you know I truly have a heart to help people and get to know people. But as far as tying myself down to one person and forever etching our path together, and so you know I could only go as far as he goes, or he could only go as far as I go, I was not comfortable with that at all. And unfortunately, you know, you get into a relationship where feelings are involved, and you think that's your forever person. So when I came to that aha moment, I knew that I had to absolutely cut ties and let him know that it wasn't him or, you know, anything that we were doing. It was ultimately for each other. It was for us to be able to grow and become the adults that we were meant to be, and not be tethered to each other, because it really hinders you in a way, because you're constantly thinking of that other person. And hey, I'm not bashing anybody who is in that type of relationship, who likes to be in that type of relationship, because like I said earlier, everybody's path is their own way. But for me, I did not see myself figuring out what I wanted to do while I was figuring out who I was in that relationship. Like, they just didn't coincide. So my aha moment was definitely like, I should probably do this on my own for a while and figure out what I like to do before I, you know, conform and figure out what he likes of me to do for him, and vice versa. So that was my aha moment. If I were to speak with anybody alive or deceased, I have so many options, because I have a list, of course, of people who are deceased. I have a list of people who are alive, but I don't think I'm actually going to meet them. And then I have a list of actual people that I want to meet that I think are obtainable. So I'm trying to file through my head who I want to pull from. Well, you know what? The first answer is the most authentic one, right? So I would say Maya Angelou. And just her entire presence, right? When you saw her in a video, or you just heard her phenomenal voice speaking, even just saying hello, like you get chills up your arm. So I would just love to sit down and have a conversation with her. I feel like her, not only book knowledge, but her life knowledge is just unmeasurable, right? And so I would definitely say Maya Angelou, just because I think that she has so much knowledge to give me and that I would want to absorb from her. One thing that I would like to see or come into fruition in this lifetime, and I don't mean this to sound selfish or anything, but honestly, one of the basis of success for me is finding my own happiness, finding my own joy. And so I would like to, for me personally, feel fulfilled in what I'm doing and not worry about who I'm doing it for, or worry about, you know, what income I'm gonna get from it. I just want to do something that I know is making a difference in other people's lives, and also in return that absolutely warms my heart, fills me up. And that's something that I know is going to come into fruition, but that was the first answer that came into my mind. So first answer is the honest answer, right? So that's what I would like to see happen in this lifetime. One place that I would absolutely love to visit is Guam, and that's because that's where my father's from. And even though, you know, that's half of my nationality and who I am, I'm regret to say that I do not know that part of my culture. And so I've, you know, heard the stories, you can look up pictures, you can, you know, talk to people on the internet, but it's not the same as being there and actually experiencing the culture for yourself. So that's one place that I would like to go to get back to my roots and see what that side of my culture looks like. thinking of quotes that inspire me for middle school speech and debate. I had impromptu speaking was my subject that I competed in, and so in order to be a great impromptu speaker, you have to have kind of a bullet list of quotes that you can pull up and make your impromptu speech really strong. And so one really always stuck in my head, and it's from Beyonce Knowles, and she said, "When I'm having a bad day, I look myself in the mirror and I ask myself, what am I gonna do about it?" And that one stuck with me because, you know, everybody has bad days. Everybody can encounter something in a day that can either determine that you're gonna have the rest of the day bad, or you're gonna be able to turn it around and shake it off, kind of. And so whenever I'm in a situation where I'm like, how did I get here? What am I gonna do next? I go back to that quote, and, you know, of course, Beyonce's voice is always inspirational, whatever she's doing. And so I hear her telling me that, and I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? What can I do right now to fix the situation that I'm in, you know? And it kind of starts my mind process and my movements and, you know, kind of my body language, because I like to write my list down. And it starts me going into baby steps of alleviating whatever situation I'm in so that I can see a better tomorrow, or I can, you know, be able to not feel so stuck. Currently, I am in a book club that I'm so grateful that my friend Kayla started with her group called Revamp in North Carolina. And we're currently reading Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. And the subtitle is What We Should Know About the People We Don't Know. And it's more than I thought that it was going to be, absolutely, because it's talking, the basis of it is how we perceive people who we don't know, right? How we create assumptions, and then that creates how we act with that person and our subsequent interaction after that. And so from there, it'll go into how people are double agents in the CIA and all of these international crises that we've had because people weren't able to detect when somebody was lying to them. And it also goes into how with racial injustice or with racial prejudice, how cops and Black people here in America have tense or have unpleasant interactions, to say the least, right? Because one person makes an assumption of the other. And so it kind of breaks down how we think about strangers and why we can't detect when someone's lying. My playlist, I just designed it because I have very many playlists. I'm a Spotify girl. Let me go ahead and say that first so you can search me on there. But I have a playlist for where I'm in a good mood, and that really goes from gospel to R&B to love songs to worship songs, kind of all over the place, right? But it makes sense to me, and I feel like it reflects me as a person, because not only am I a Christian and I have my, you know, beliefs in God and my relationship with God, but I also I'm a 90s baby, you know, and I grew up in the early 2000s era of music, so I am able to embrace both of those sides and create my playlist. My life as a woman is complicated, and I'm not afraid to admit that, because there is no instruction manual of how you get into this adult thing, and I am figuring that out every step that I go, and I realize that I need to make sure that my medical insurance is kept up, and make sure that my car gets registered, and make sure that, you know, I have enough gas to get to A to B. And so my life as a woman has been complicated, but I am blessed to be in this life, and I know that throughout this roller coaster that, you know, God is always with me, and He's really my saving grace. What I love about El Paso is the people here. It's always been interesting for me to not only grow up on the military base, right, because that's where I started when we moved here, but then I also went off base to school, and I found some awesome friends when I was at Ross Middle School that I still talk to this day. You know, we now 2 of them are with child, and so we send each other pictures of that, and I send pictures of my niece, and, you know, we keep up with each other. Going into high school and going to a magnet school where not everyone is from the area, I got to meet people from the west side. I got to meet people from the northeast. I got to meet people from that area, you know, and it was not only like, oh, I stay in my area and that's it. No, we, you know, had to go to school in one central place. And because of that, we all took our perceptions of the city and we brought it to that place. And it was really interesting to hear everybody's background, to hear everybody, really a melting pot of experiences being an El Pasoan, right? And I've loved those people there. I still keep up with my friend group there as well. And, you know, even them going off to college or them going over to NMSU, we still keep in contact with each other. And after that, of course, like I mentioned earlier, we have my church family, right, who has been incredible, always there for me, always supporting whatever I'm doing. And I've been grateful to have them be a part of my life. So it's definitely been the people here in El Paso. And I am glad to say that I am growing my group, right, my kind of inner circle, because I've learned of so many other people who are here in El Paso, who are working here in El Paso, who are part of the Black community that I'm gonna be blunt, didn't know that really existed here until I went to look for it. So I'm grateful to be able to go into those circles and be welcomed with open arms and really feel like a part of the community here. I believe El Paso can be more inviting by not feeling content in a bubble. I feel like, and I'm speaking from personal experience, because not only was I in a bubble of only living on post, but I was also in a bubble of only talking to the people who are around me, right? And so it wasn't until, you know, I got my car and I started driving around El Paso that I found all these great restaurants locally. I found, you know, all of these wonderful organizations who are working here in the city that I agree with their mission and vision statement, and so I want to get involved with those organizations, right? I found community give back opportunities that are not just organizing a run here, which is very important, don't get me wrong. My mom is an avid long distance runner and she's running many races here in El Paso, but as a high school student here in the borderland, and somebody who was involved in organizations who need to find community outreach opportunities, I wish that I had known more about the community outreach that's available here in El Paso, so I could donate my time to that versus a race or a run or something, you know, more involved for people who are body abled or, you know, kind of doing things for recreation. I definitely believe that there are a lot of people doing great works here in El Paso. We just have to connect to each other. Everybody's kind of like in a bubble of the Northeast, or in a bubble of the East Side, or in a bubble of the Far East Side even, and they're okay with that. But we've got to, you know, break down those walls and be okay with talking to people who we don't see on a regular basis. What the world needs now is medicine available to everywhere. I think it's absolutely heartbreaking and ridiculous that there are still countries and underdeveloped countries really that are still considered third world, and they're not given the same basic resources that we have here in America. I think it's atrocious that people are begging on the streets when, you know, there are other people who are Jeff Bezos and have all of the money in the world and never have to worry about working a day in their life for his kids. I just really, my heart bleeds for people who are below the poverty line, you know, and there's so many resources here in the world. There's so many resources here in America that we can give back to other people, and everybody kind of has their fists clenched on what's theirs because they want to make sure they're okay. But there are people who are dying in the streets, who are struggling, especially amid this COVID-19. I think really opened some people's eyes to it. And even some people, they were just like, oh, I get to stay home for a while and that's going to be great because I don't have to worry about food or where food's going to come from. And so that's what I truly believe the world needs. And then, you know, just on a person-to-person basis, what the world needs Today is love. We just need to understand that the person next to me is a human being. I don't know their story. I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what they've been through, but I should be able to approach this person and be a loving brother to them, be a loving sister to them. And I mean, that brings me back to my faith, really, because that's who Jesus was. He was someone who didn't care where anybody else came from. He just wanted to love on people and help people. And so that's what I believe the world needs. A gem that is here in El Paso that I believe everyone should try is El Cometa. Oh my goodness. And this is one that I have recently found. They have the best flautas that you will ever taste. Like I said, I recently found them, so maybe somebody could prove me different, and I'd love to hear those suggestions. But their flautas, like, I can eat those every day. So I definitely think that everybody should try them. Also, of course, my experience here is through growing up, right? So in my high school years, I think everybody should become as part of student council, not necessarily to do things, because I know that they do have a lot of things to do, and it's a lot of work. I definitely remember that, but going to those Super Sat conferences, which is where all the student councils from all of the high schools in El Paso come together, and the room is just so energized, and it feels like you're at a football game, right? And I mean like a real football game, not like, you know, kind of these, yeah. Anyways, it's like everybody there is just excited to be there and in the presence of everyone else. And it was amazing because not only did we do outreach opportunities there, we had a motivational speaker who would tell us about their experience in whatever situation they went through. But it was also seeing my friends who I hadn't seen in years, right? You make connections through track, through basketball, through even middle school. And so all coming together and being able to see them and just kind of enjoying each other and having a good time, that was definitely one of the highlights of high school for me. So I would say those are my two definitely unknown gems, because nobody's thinking about high school when they talk about gems in El Paso, but those are the ones that I would suggest. Hello, El Paso. My message to you is get out and vote. That's it. Just vote. It's so important to have your voice heard, not only nationally, because I know things can feel like they get drowned out when you look at things on a national scale, but here locally in El Paso, you can make a difference. Less than 10% of people make it out to vote every election cycle, and you can be a part of changing that and increasing the amount of people who make it out to vote to improve the democratic process here. I have some important dates for you. The last day to register to vote is October 5th. Early voting starts as early as October 13th. So if you're a person who forgets like I am, then I encourage you to go from October 13th to October 30th. You have 2 weeks to get out there and get your early vote in. If you do forget and you have to absolutely have one date that you're gonna make it out to vote, make it out on November 3rd. Do it. It's so important. Please vote. Thank you.